call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. This is Electric Utility Operations Review and Advisory Board meeting, URAB meeting, seeking public input on the value of solar and solar policy discussion. Before we get into that, this is a regular URAB meeting, so we do offer a public forum. This is a time set aside for comments from the public on topics of the City of Ames electric utility business other than those listed on the agenda. Please understand that the board will not take any action on your comments at this meeting due to the requirements of the open meeting law. The chairperson may limit each speaker to 5 minutes. So do we have anybody who would like to speak on a topic other than the solar policy? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and have the URAB members introduce each other. My name is Jeff Witt. I am chair of URAB, and I retired a few years ago after nearly 40 years in the energy business, most of that at Iowa State University. Randy, you want to go?
Yeah, I'm Randy Larrabee, also retired electrical engineer, spent 38 years at Iowa State Utilities Department.
Real?
Muriel Storm. I do not have any background in utility, anything like electrical. I'm just a normal Ames resident who was interested in utilities and wanted to make the city better for my future generations.
Okay.
I'm John Fleming. I drove submarines for about 8 years, and then I got out of the Navy, worked at the campus power plant for a little bit, and now I'm a teaching professor at Iowa State.
And we have one member, Mike Wilson, who's not here. He's traveling for work. He's an engineer with Chevron REG. Also have two city staff, Don and Curtis.
My name is Donald Comm. I'm the Director of Electric Services here for the city. And then also, since I don't know if you have a mic down there, but then Curtis Spence is the Assistant Director, sitting there controlling all of the computer equipment.
Okay. So thanks for your interest in solar energy and attending this public meeting. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background before we go into our presentation. So URAB investigates and reviews all aspects of the operations of the Ames Municipal Electric Utility. We report to council regarding management practices, planning and proposals, including rate structures and power sales contracts, and provides advice and proposals to city council on other matters as needed. So some background on this, this topic tonight. Electric Services completed an electric service cost of service study. That study was done by Utility Financial Services, LLC. Mark Beauchamp, the president of UFS, presented the results of that study to City Council and URAB in a workshop last summer on June 18th. The primary purpose of the study was to review Electric Services rate structure and recommend any changes to more accurately represent the true cost of service for the different classes of customers in Ames. City Council has since approved those changes, which went into effect on October 1 of this year. In addition, new rates called time of use rates were approved and will be implemented in the future as new advanced metering infrastructure is implemented. A third piece of this study was a determination of the value of excess solar that Electric Services purchases from those Electric Services customers who have solar panels installed at their properties. The City Council took no action on this topic and asked URAB to review, obtain public input, and then come back to council with a recommendation. That's the purpose of this meeting, is to gain input. So we have talked about this at a couple different meetings. We have some thoughts. We're going to share those with you tonight and then ask for your input. So I'm now going to turn this over to URAB member John Fleming here, who will present the information, the ideas and thoughts that we have come up with between ourselves and Electric Services staff.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So I'm just going to try to summarize a few options that we're considering recommending to City Council. So we're going to start from the beginning. That was the direction we got from City Council. Jeff pretty much just summed it up perfectly. They wanted us to tool it over a little bit and then get public input to see what the best result is. And part of this, we have to keep in mind our climate goal as well as a city. So what helped us guide URAB in creating these possibilities was we want to have an encouragement for customers to do their own rooftop solar, but at extent not to create a drastic cost shift or a cross subsidy, meaning the rest of the utility customers are subsidizing to a great cause the people that have the solar arrays. And then the second one is solar customers should be given credit for the value of the solar that they bring to Ames, and the avoided costs from this energy capacity and transmission, as well as the environmental benefits the solar brings. And these should all be considered when setting these rates, the buyback rates, and how we're compensated. So I'm sure most of you are well aware of the current program. The current program allows for a fully self-consumption behind the meter, and it also allows excess energy to be bought by the city. The way the code is written is currently capped at that 2,000 kilowatts, 2,000 of installed rooftop solar around the city, and the existing rates and policies are subject to change. Essentially, in the code, it says it can change at any time. And then having a solar photovoltaic rebate is part of the Smart Energy program. So you install a solar array and you apply for a Smart Energy rebate, and you get a rebate back after you've passed the interconnection, and your solar is up and operating. These are the current buyback rates. So this is a very involved slide, but it can be simplified as retail rate times 40% of that retail rate. So whatever retail rate is, plus 2.5 cents. And so right now, if you're a residential customer, which I'm gonna just assume most everyone here is a residential customer. I know there are a few commercial or industrial customers that are also here, but I'm just going to use residential as an example. So right now, any excess energy that in the summer they buy back at 7.35 cents per kilowatt hour, and then in the winter it's 6.52 cents per kilowatt hour. And there was some historical, again, anyone feel free to correct me here. There was some historical context of these numbers were kind of just set to make one of the city council members, they seemed about right. There's not a whole lot of information to how these numbers came to be. They were kind of just agreed upon before. So that's where we're currently at. And then on top of that, once you have your solar array installed, you can apply for this $100 per kilowatt hour, or sorry, $100 per kilowatt of installed, and that's DC sizing, right? So I have a solar array at my house. I have 6.6 kilowatts on my rooftop. I've had it there for 5 years. So once mine was done and I passed the interconnection and it was operating, I got $660 back in a rebate from the city. It was a little different when a couple of years ago when I installed it. It was based on the amount of electricity your array produced between 4 and 5 p.m. But to make that less confusing, they just went to $100 per kilowatt installed. The current size of if you add all the solar arrays up across the city, we have 1,596 kilowatts of installed solar. And like I said, the way the city code is written, the program is meant to be capped at that 2,000 kilowatts. So we're getting closer, but not. It's not an emergency. We're not right up against it yet. That 1,600 kilowatts is across 210 customers. So that's how many different arrays we have installed. And if you look at the average customer, 65% of the energy that array produces is consumed inside that house. So really only about 35% of the electricity an average home or average residential user has goes back on the grid. So that'll become important when we look at some of the options we come up with. So this is kind of all the information we got before we looked at what options we think we can do. Some of the bullet points are the things about the current system. It's kind of easy to understand. It's 40% of the old rates, not the newer rates, but it's 40% of the old rates plus 2.5 cents. Pretty easy to calculate. I know I'm getting that much back for every kilowatt. It doesn't change. It's pretty easy. Allows customers to sell, right? So the city will buy that from us, and us being people with solar arrays, they'll buy that extra energy that we're producing. And then the one negative, I would say, and I think this is one of the things that we want to change, is it depends on the class of customer. So if you're a commercial customer, an industrial customer, or a residential customer, you get the city buys the electricity off your solar array and pays you different amounts, just depending on what type of customer you are. And so that can be confusing. The rates are higher and lower than the rate study or the value of solar figure. So the consultants came up with a value of of the solar that customers produce for the utility, and we'll get to that. That'll come up later. And then right now, with the prices that they are, there's not a dramatic cross subsidy. So our other Ames customers their bills are not severely impacted based on the city buying the solar from or buying the electricity from solar customers at these rates. And then rates are subject to change per the ordinance. So that's always on there. So what did Jeff already summarized the first couple bullet points here? They did a big, huge evaluation of our rate structure and how it works. We've already seen a change in that, and this is kind of one of the last key points of that. That study found that the utility should really only be paying 5.5 cents per kilowatt of excess solar for solar customers. So 5.5 is less than the 6.35 or the 7.52 that we normally get right now. So the one thing that rate does not consider is the environmental impact. So is there value to not putting greenhouse gases or burning dinosaur juice or something, right? Is there value to that is not being included in that value? That value only includes the transmission, the actual cost of that power, and then the distribution of that power. So that's how they got those numbers, and that was done at a peak time. So that calculation was done for peak time in the middle of summer when the city needs to buy a premium price power. That was the price that they used when they came up with that number. So that being said, we don't really have a side, but this cross subsidy, I haven't really, I guess, explained that. So when you put a solar array on your house, you're not paying for electricity now. And so, and then currently, according to the rate study, the city is paying a premium for the excess electricity that you are producing. They're paying a premium compared to what they could get it somewhere else, essentially. And so if you take that premium and you spread it across all the solar, all the solar, where is that slide? I don't know where it is. It's about, it's in a slide later, but all the other utility customers are paying a little bit extra just because we have solar, or just because people have solar panels on their roof. And right now, it's not a huge cross subsidy. It's not a lot of money that's being crossed, and it's almost negligible. But the problem is, if we continue to go down that road, you end up where electricity is much more expensive, like Hawaii or California, and there it has become a huge problem of this cross subsidy, because in general, people are putting solar panels on their houses or their businesses, and they can afford to do that, and then they're driving up the price of electricity for people that maybe have a harder time paying their electric bill. And so right now that's not a problem here, but we want to ensure it doesn't become a problem. It's part of the calculus as well. So for new rates for customers, we have a couple options. We continue the existing program just the way it is, and we just increase the cap and say we'll assess this again at maybe 5 megawatts and see what that cross subsidy is, and is it a problem at that point. We changed it to a flat buyback rate. So we changed the rate, and there's a slide, we'll talk about the different rates. And that's the same no matter what type of customer you are, residential, industrial, commercial, small commercial. We front load the rebate. So we make that rebate a little bit higher because the assessment is the reason more people don't jump into solar is that initial investment is so much. So is there a way to help them reduce that initial investment by giving them a higher rebate initially, and then you get a smaller buyback rate after it's installed. So you get more money up front, but you get less money through the buyback. And then the last one is retail rate, less energy costs for distribution and expenses. So the following slides will cover that. So leave everything as it is. Take the current cap up to 5 megawatts, and then the rates stay the same. 4.72 for industrial, and then all the way up to summer residential is 7.35. Option 2, the flat buyback. Here we kind of open up into some more options as well. So we can just switch to that 5.5 cents that the cost of service study recommended. If you were to purchase community solar, that's valued at 5.9. So is community solar any different than a residential or commercial rooftop solar? That would be left to be made an argument of. And so maybe we set that buyback rate to what community solar is and match that. And so then it's just 5.9 cents per kilowatt hour. Or we take that cost of service number and we add a cent to account for some of the environmental benefits that rooftop solar does provide. So kind of giving the value of having solar value outside just the energy costs. So that's just extra value that a lot of utilities have priced it at either a half cent to a cent, which some customers are willing to pay a little bit extra to ensure they're getting renewable energy. And so that's kind of where that cent comes from. So 6.5 cents. This would include all new customers, and existing customers would have the option of staying at their current rate or just moving to this rate as well. So if you already have a solar array, you can keep your old plan. This would only be for new customers, or if you wanted to switch over to this one as well. Front-loaded rebate, we would increase the price of the rebate from $100 up to $500 to $700 per kilowatt installed. So you're getting a significant rebate off the bat. It's around 15% when we were doing some example customers. But if you added a comparable 6 to 9 kilowatt system on your rooftop, this would account for about 15% of that cost that you would get in a rebate right off the bat. But because you got such a bigger rebate right off the bat, your buyback would only be the wholesale price for that, which is about 3 cents. So the city would buy it from you at essentially the same rate it could get it elsewhere. So, and that's about 3 cents per kilowatt is what we would pay for that. The nice thing about this is it helps some of those customers overcome that huge financial burden of putting a solar array on their house at first. And then the final option here is a full retail rate less distribution costs. So the average distribution cost is 2.3 cents per kilowatt hour. And so if we adopt this, retail rate is 8.63. That's the new one. This is for a residential customer. In the winter, and 11 cents in the summer. And so then it would change to 6.3 and 8.7, which would average out to about 7.12, which would be slightly higher than the current rate that everyone gets. If we did this, there'd be no rebate offered, and additional work would be needed to determine these rates for commercial and industrial customers. We only did it residential for this. Next up, we want to hear from you all, and that's why you're here. We'll take down your opinions and your thoughts, and we'll discuss them at our next meeting, and then bring a full recommendation to the city council on how to proceed.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
So we're going to open it up for comments and questions at this point. If you want to make a comment, we'd ask you to come up here to the podium so that you can be heard on the TV. And please state your name and your address before you start talking. So anybody would like to talk?
And we will mention that tonight is being recorded so that if you know of other people that weren't able to make it tonight, they can, this recording will be available so that they can also get that information.
My name is Jim Penny. I live at 2936 Cypress Circle, and we put in about a 7 kilowatt system in 2016, and at that time it was net billing, and that worked real well. I can't comment more than that, but we really like that. And I don't know, the option 4 would probably be good for us. I don't know. When you say there's about 1,600 kilowatt hours of solar energy available or generated, how does that compare with the total amount that you use? Is it less than 1%?
Total for the city?
Yeah.
So approximately from a solar standpoint, if you also include our community solar that we have, so it's not only the 1,600, but the 2 megawatt community solar is providing less than 1% of the energy consumed by the city.
So I guess my point is it's not very much, and we could, if we're gonna think green and be conservationists, let's encourage more people to put on solar. Let's get the rates up so people are interested. Right now, it's not so interesting. I don't, you're gonna take it back, the initial cost and raise the rate later, you'd have to run the numbers to see which would be better, but I could guess that people would rather get, more money up front. And I don't know how much the systems have gone up or what they cost now. I haven't priced them. So that's all I've got to add.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. We have questions.
I'm Philip Dixon, 3410 Clinton Court, and we put in one of the very first solar systems in town. I think we're number 9, went in late 2013. It's relatively low powered, 2.2 kilowatts, because that's what was available at the time. This is, as Jim said, not the first time we've had this discussion. And I certainly understand the original buyback, once the amount of solar being generated on people's roofs got to the point that it did, that it was unsustainable for the utility. And my sense of the discussion at the time was that all the people in the public meeting went along with that. And I was very appreciative when, as a result of that public discussion, you decided to add that 25 cents or 0.025 cents to the rate as a bonus for basically keeping up, reducing the amount of energy that the city has to buy at peak rates during the summer. And as a result, one of the questions that was asked at the time was, what are you going to do differently? And what we did was turn our air conditioner on earlier than we would have, so that basically during the peak generating periods of the day, we would be running the air conditioner, not at 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And that's worked exceedingly well. We're probably consuming well more than 65% of the energy. What I haven't heard any recognition of in any of these rates is the fact that owners have to pay maintenance. It's either maintenance on an annual basis to clean the things, which we do ourselves, or it's replacing the labor to replace parts that break. We've already had to replace we've got 15 microinverters, 15 panels. We've already had to replace a microinverter. The hardware was free, but it was like $600 or $700 to get somebody up on the roof to pull it. We replaced our roof. That required stripping the system, and that was not cheap. That was an extra couple of $1,000s to put the system back. We seriously thought about actually taking it off and leaving it off, and decided that we would be good citizens to put it back up. And now we have to replace a panel. So that's most relevant to comparing prices with the community solar. I don't know how you set those prices. My supposition is that, in fact, the utility system is paying for the maintenance on the community solar.
Yeah, actually, in our contract on that community solar, we pay 5.9 cents. It includes all maintenance and replacement of panels. But yeah, it's built into it. Yes.
So a system that, when we considered doing this, completely apart from was this a good thing to do, where the answer was absolutely yes. We have almost the perfect roof for a solar system. We did look at the cost. We did look at the time to return on investment. And with the prices of panels at the time, it was a 15-year return on investment at the buyback rate. I haven't worked the numbers. I've been afraid to work the numbers. It's probably 20 to 25 years at this point, not counting maintenance fees. So please think about the new customers, but please keep awareness of the existing customers who have invested money to try to reduce the basically the overload on the municipal power plant and the need to buy power elsewhere during peak times. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip.
Mhm.
I'm Tom Meyer at 1020 Mesa Verde Place, and I'm wearing two hats. The first is my own installation, which was 2017. It's about 3¼ kilowatts, and it's been totally problem-free. We had to scale it back from the originally planned 4 kilowatts because of city restrictions wanting fire access on the roof. I don't know if that was overly conservative or not. We've converted our house to be 100% electric. So we have a heat pump and an electric water heater. That means we don't feed very much back in. And our annual buyback total is under $100. So that's not a big consideration. However, my other hat is from the United Church of Christ down the street. We have a nice large flat roof that they estimate we could put as much as 25 kilowatts of generation on it. We haven't done the structural evaluation yet. It may be a non-starter, but that's far more than we would consume. That means we would be putting back into the city, and the buyback rate is crucial there. And we are a nonprofit, so anything dealing with tax refunds and so on is out of the question. So, I just put that on the table. It's not clear, even if structurally it's okay, if financially it would be a viable option for us. The upfront money is not important because we're in a rare situation where we have money from a fundraiser about 5 years ago, celebrating our 150th anniversary as a congregation. And that's to be used for capital improvements on our property. So upfront money is not a problem.
A question for you. Have you
Yeah.
considered, a lot of churches have bought into the community solar. Is that something that you guys have talked about or not?
It may be a viable alternative plan.
Okay.
Especially if structurally
Right.
it doesn't fly.
Right.
So,
That'd be an option for you.
yeah. And we have, I think, bought in at a low level. And many members have bought in as well.
Good.
So,
Thank you.
While we wait, there's a missing slide. Just so you're aware, so the utility purchased about 750,000 kilowatts from solar customers each year. It's 0.1% of the total annual energy cost, and it is cross-subsidized of about $4,700. So the rest of the utility customers pay an extra $4,725 a year on their bills, which is equivalent to about 6.63, is equivalent to about 0.7 cents per month that the average utility member pays extra, right? So right now it's not a problem. If we were to go to that 5 megawatts, now that number becomes $15,000, and it's it's over 2 cents per month. And the other side of that is, if everyone put on community solar, if everyone in the town put on solar panels on the roof, we would still not be able to reach our climate goals. So the other argument that I didn't bring up in the presentation is that $15,000 or the $5,000 right now, would that be better spent on a community situation where we would be able to get more bang for our buck, if you will. So that's another consideration that we have. That's another part of the discussion we've had as well. So there was a couple of slides missing. Yeah, you can come up and answer. Now, I know that probably piqued a bunch more questions, so I apologize, but.
Okay, Bob.
My name is Bob Haug. I live at 3517 Oakland Street. I'm a longtime member of the Ames Climate Action Team, and this is a day that the world got a pretty bad report card on how we're doing on climate change. Ames, fortunately, has adopted a climate action plan. And if you look at the implementation goals for that plan, it indicates that over the life of the plan, 21% of the emission reductions are going to come from the acquisition of renewable energy, specifically wind and solar by the utility. But 11% of the total emission reductions are supposed to come from rooftop solar. According to the implementation plan, by 2025, the utility should have acquired 50 megawatts of renewable energy systems. And if you imply the same timetable, residential and business customers should have installed 26 megawatts of rooftop solar. Well, obviously, there's no chance of meeting those timelines. But if the city's commitment to climate action means anything at all, we need to encourage investments now. And the reason for that is that there are billions of dollars of federal tax credits available through the Inflation Reduction Act. Those full credits of 30% of the cost of installation are available essentially not only to customers, but to the municipal utility as well. And they last for another 8 years. There's 3 additional years where they decline. But the reason that the big investment in renewables was put in the front part of the implementation plan is that now is when those tax credits are available. And for that reason, any decision you make to reduce incentives right now, I think sends a really bad signal to the community when we should be really encouraging investments both in utility infrastructure as well as customer-owned solar. Regarding the cost of the cross subsidies, I had a different number, a little higher than what the 4,000 some. My understanding was that the cross subsidy totaled about $10,500 a year. Whether it's 4,000 or 10,000, it's really pencil dust when you think about the big cross subsidy that's been occurring for the last few decades because of the city's failure to move away from the combustion of our waste. The cost of that subsidy to utility ratepayers is at least $10 million a year. And so I would hope that the URAB would continue to propose to the city council that they move up the timeline for ending the combustion of municipal waste. We're burning so much natural gas, putting so much emissions into the air, which would not have to occur. And the sooner that transition is completed, the better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Do we have other comments?
My name is Ranjan Moitra, and we just got solar installed two months ago, 4724 Hemingway Drive. First of all, I do not know all the complicated calculations and that go into all this. But let me tell you one of the experiences that we had when many people in the area are around Ames, they don't even want to serve Ames because they don't feel that the city incentivizes enough, and therefore there are enough customers. And the main reason for us getting solar is environmental. We basically probably use about 25 to 27% of the solar that we generate. We have a small system. We don't we try to basically have always cut down and been very cognizant of our energy incentives. Anyway, I also think, so my suggestion is, my humble request is, whatever you try, please incentivize solar. It will bring down costs for everybody. More people will get incentivized to join the program. And also one more thing is, once more people provide solar, I believe those subsidy costs, maybe I don't know this, but my understanding of energy markets were it was also based on demand. And so therefore, if there's less demand because other things are being produced in solar and stuff like that, those prices will also come down, and therefore whatever these numbers are, and I have not looked at them, I don't even know how these calculations came, and maybe they are available somewhere and would be beneficial to look at. It would be beneficial if you actually considered that option. One last thing is that one of the things most of these installers came back to me when I was looking at it was, oh, are you Alliant Energy or City of Ames? Apparently Alliant Energy gives a better buyback, and it is, I don't know, which is what I've heard. And if they heard City of Ames, oh, it's not worth it for you. Okay, well, we were not investing in it for whether it was worth it for us or not. But anyway, my point is that it would be, please do look into ways to incentivize the program.
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We have looked at neighboring utilities, and it's hard to, they don't advertise on their websites explicitly how much their buybacks and stuff are. So it's hard to judge, but they are close. And we're better than some, and we're worse than others. So
Other comments?
that has been taken into consideration.
Other comments?
Hello, thank you for your time. Colby Fangman, 922 Duff Avenue. We put in a 7.9 kilowatt hour system approximately 6 or 7 years ago. Following a major house fire where we lost all of our personal possessions, all of these things. Sorry, I'm a little nervous, and this is very personal for me. So sorry if I choke through this.
Okay, take your time.
Utilizing those, we took our personal property money and we put a solar system on our house as a long-term economic plan, thinking 30 years out. We're a single income household. I have 2 kids. The other one's due here in a month, so I already think 2. So to continue to squeeze those rate of return, when we put that large of a system on our house, that really squeezes me and my family, and that hurts. There are maintenance costs. I appreciate that being brought up by others. And it's, to do it yourself is risky. To get on your roof, to clean those panels is risky. To pay someone to do it is expensive. Birds defecate, you got to do it. And there's also maintenance issues with birds nesting under the panels. Sorry, really nervous. So I think the maintenance cost has to be considered. And I'm catching up on a lot of this. It was shocking to me to hear the community solar is more cost effective than what we did, and taking a huge risk to invest in that system. But we saw the value. We did the 30-year calculus. We saw the value. I'm a big conservationist. I'm a professional landscape architect. This is in my heart. I really believe in it. And so there's those pieces. The front-loaded rebate, it does nothing for me. I think we all know the federal rebate is really where that lion's share is. And that's what is really getting people to get into this. I was also excited. I live on Duff Avenue. I was excited to be a pioneer and a trendsetter. And I think the growth is great. And I'm very proud to know, because we've dramatically changed our behaviors because we have to get these buyback as part of our economic outlook. So we're cooling earlier. When we can't, we're running our dishwasher or laundry right before we go to bed. We're seriously changing our behaviors to be most cost effective for both the peak rate of the city and for ourselves. And I'm very proud to know when, it's 100 degrees out and I'm not running my AC and I'm feeding my neighbors. That is a big point of pride for me. So I guess I think the maintenance has to be considered. I think the environmental value has to be considered. I think this notion that all of us out here took a risk and it should be normalized as not as a thing only for people of means. It should be normalized as a thing for everybody. And if we're serious about our climate goals, that's what it's going to take. And, I think our number of heating days or our number of cooling days and how much we have to cool continues to go up. When I saw the service fee go way up and the rate go down, I was just remiss. I was like, why didn't I get an EV? Why didn't I get an EV? And here I'm thinking to myself, how do I make this shake out? And it's actually it's using more energy. And if we're already having text after text over the summer about peak rate use, I think I read we're going to have a single 128 degree day a summer within like 5 years. So if that continues to exacerbate, how is that factored into all of this? So I think there's a lot of things that need additional consideration here. And, I was always kind of under the presumption that energy rates will only go up as demand, et cetera. And as we transition to more green uses. So really this was shocking to me. And, here I'm sitting here thinking like, do I need to set up a Bitcoin farm to use my excess instead of selling it back to the city? I mean, seriously, I could get an Arduino, I could write a program and set up a Bitcoin farm to actually try to monetize that. And if it's going to continue to squeeze, I think for those that it's a serious economic thing, we have to make those considerations. I appreciate your time, consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Jim Coyle. I'm at 4301 Ross Road. I installed a 4.7 kilowatt system in 2021. And I undersized it precisely because I did not want to be pushing back into the utility. My thought was I would just reduce the amount that I was using. Because I understand that there have been people who were overproducing, and I think that's why you reduce the rate for buyback. My problem is, in contrast to what you've seen, I only get about a third self-use, and it's really annoying to me when I see a bill which says I pushed out 400 kilowatt hours and used kilowatt hours, and my bill is not zero. That's really annoying because I gave it to you and I just took it back. You didn't have to have more transmission lines because I would have pulled that in anyway, right? So the transmission lines were the same. So you didn't have any other infrastructure costs. One possibility for raising the buyback rate would be something like, well, no, we're not going to buy back excess that is over what you use, right? We're not going to be paying you to consume, but to put in a service charge. Alliant has a service charge, so they have basically an infrastructure charge. So when you hook up, you have a fee, at least on my gas bill, there's a fee. Got it here if you want to see it. The reason there is I think you're going to have continuing problems as we produce more power on rooftop solar, subject to what the power plant can handle. I don't know how much residential solar you can handle because of the intermittent nature. I mean, that may be a problem, and that has to be a cap. But if it's just a cap from budgetary, the problem you're going to have is that the infrastructure cost is not being captured when I produce, right? But if you just put that out there, see, the problem is you're taking capital and operational cost and you're putting it all into an operation cost. I think that's a budgetary issue. And as you add more and more solar, that's going to be a problem. And perhaps that's why you have that cap. I don't know why you have the cap. I mean, why do you have a cap? I don't know. That's never been, I didn't realize there was a cap. I assumed that it was just nobody wanted to put it any more up. I also bought into the solar farm, the community solar. I knew I wasn't going to make any money from that. I knew I was going to lose money on that, but I thought that was good for the community. I do appreciate Ames. It's a very progressive community, and I think we do, I really appreciate being able to give you input. But thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I am James Burnaugh, 3511 Oakland Street on the west side of town. I just put in a solar system on my house this past summer, winter, spring. Took a while to get it connected. But, I agree with everything that's been presented this evening, and I won't go over those facts again because I think everybody agrees with that. But I do have a few questions that I find sort of disturbing, okay? As the previous gentleman talked about buying into the community solar and not getting a positive return on that in terms of a monetary state. I find it confusing that we continually talk about those who don't have solar are unhappy with those of us that do have solar. And my understanding of that, a lot of that stems back to a 2020 report in California. It mentions California and Hawaii. I think we're talking about the same one. That the lower economic status people were paying more into the system than the other people that had solar. But yet nobody mentions, including the gentleman that presented to council on June 24th, that California and Hawaii had retail prices they were paying for their excess solar, okay? So if we were all getting retail price for our solar, I can understand why some people would be unhappy with that. Yet California and Hawaii have changed their system. They no longer pay that. Yet we still quote that the people are unhappy. And I'd like to see that data. I'd like to see the survey, including in Ames, where people are unhappy that some of us have solar. I mean, I'm trying to do my part for the climate action plan, the community. It's the right thing to do. I've had several people call me and ask my advice and to counsel them on their solar projects. And many of them say, I want to put a larger system on than I'm going to use because it's the right thing to do for the community. It's the ability to keep those peaker generators from operating on those peak demand days. I like to think that we are, besides doing for ourselves, we're doing for more for other people. So I think if we want to talk about people are unhappy because we have solar, I'd like to see those surveys or else eliminate those comments because I think they are speculation on people that they want to look up for negative comments about solar, why we shouldn't be doing this. And I think that's a wrong thing for a community that has a climate action plan. You talked about the $750,000 that the community purchased from solar producers. I think when I calculated it out, it's something like less than $20 a month that the average producer is getting. If you take the 750,000 divided by the number of producers, as Bob stated, we're talking about pencil dust here, right? But we bring these points up and we're talking about pencil dust. Let's talk about the climate action plan and what are we doing to make sure that we're meeting those goals. I mean, the council set policy and asks us as a community to meet those goals. And so I think we need to be doing more, and we need to be offer what we can. My final question, because I'm probably somebody else wants to talk. On the retail rates, less energy costs for distribution expenses, where does time of use fit into that? So if we go to time of use and it's 24.5 cents from 2 to 6 p.m., what's my rate going to be? My excess that I sell back to the city, am I going to get the 24 cents minus the cost? Is that what we're thinking, Don?
So we are looking at time of use rates, obviously.
Right.
They're not in place yet. And then how we would factor in solar, that's the other piece of it. So first we got to get time of use rates up and first we got to get metering, then time of use rates.
Right.
And then we will be figuring out how to handle solar buyback within a time of use rate customer.
So I understand it's going to take like 3 years to get the new meters put in and get this system up and running. So what are we thinking? Are we thinking that we're going to get that percentage of the time of use rate?
Yeah.
Because this all plays into it. We're talking about the climate action plan and meeting those
Yep.
dates and thinking forward. People that are thinking about getting solar should know where we're headed.
Right.
And I know we're having this discussion tonight, but we'd like to see answers.
Right.
And I think we probably should have had this meeting available for more residents in the city, because I know there are more people talking about getting solar, and certainly would have liked to have heard these discussions, especially from the people who've had solar for quite a while and had their experiences, and thinking about, as I know through my process, I did a lot of things wrong. I did a lot of steps incorrectly in that. It would have been nice to hear about those before we go ahead and pull the trigger on buying solar. But my goal is to have a net zero house. I'm doing everything I can to be electric, including electric car. So I just trying to keep on top of this. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim,
So-
has your car shown up yet?
What?
Has your car shown up yet?
Yeah, my wife got it last week,
Excellent. Okay.
and I've been filling it up, and I've already burned 140 kilowatts.
All right.
So that has taken a lot of my excess away. No, that's something to consider, because as people become more efficient, the projection of using more electricity, even in the single home, is going up.
Right.
You know, I can't say I'm going to put in a 5 kilowatt system on my roof and that's going to meet my needs, or even 65%. That's not even close. So anyway, thank you.
For the record, there's been no complaints, right? The people haven't complained that their bills are too high because of these solar, right? We want to be cognizant that it doesn't come to that, and that's the only discussion we're having. So no one has complained. No one's come to us and said, John, your solar. None of my neighbors have come over to me and said your solar array is causing my bill to be high, right? Because it's fractions of pennies. It is right now, but I think there's a nice hole that you need to incentivize people to do it, but you also don't want to incentivize people to put up arrays that should not have arrays on the rooftop because it faces north.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, but I think
I think there's a needle that we need to thread there, and that's what we're trying to do. And I appreciate your comments and everyone's comments about that.
I think raising the meter rate, the fixed cost up, is to cover a lot of those expenses.
Yep, right.
So we're taking action on that, but to say people are looking at paying an extra share of my electric bill is not necessarily true.
Okay.
But thank you.
So I have, just a second before you come up, Mark. So I have a question. Many of you who have spoke have solar. You've had it for a number of years. The council has been pretty clear they want us to encourage solar. So these are options that, what are these options encourage you to make a decision quicker? Would they have changed your decision making? Because really what this is about, in a lot of these cases, you could keep your old rate.
Yeah. A lot of these options, especially front loading the rebates, right? Obviously, you can't get the rebate anymore if you have a current. So then you would be grandfathered into keeping your old rates. But some of our questions are, is that extra $700 a kilowatt, would that have pushed you over the fence faster?
Right.
Would it have made you get it faster? Yeah.
Well, remember, Iowa had an 11%.
It was 15. It was half of whatever the federal one was for years. Because I got 15.
I was one of the last to get it. I
Okay.
said, oh, we ran out of money.
Okay.
Yeah, after I put it in.
So that's a piece of what we're trying to deal with here is how to encourage future solar people.
So it's 500 to 700. When we ran some numbers, it would knock. We took a normal array right now, and the buyback was like 22 years, right? The payback period to pay for that array. We made some assumptions with prices and stuff, and we got about 22 years. And if we move that rebate up to, I think it was $500, it brought that payback period up to 15 years.
It was 12.
It was 12 years. It took 10 years off the payback period by making that rebate $500 vice the $100.
Did you put in the 3 cents
Yeah.
back?
Yeah, because again, that's only 35% of what you're right. So there's still 75% you're avoiding the regular cost. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, that's part of what we're doing here is trying to understand what it might take. Can we come up with a different structure that would encourage more solar? And that option of a front-loaded rebate would be possibly a way to do that for people that are on the edge. So, Mark, you wanted to come up?
Mark Stephan, 2316 Aspen Road. Thank you for all the work you've put in on this. It's been mentioned that we're a progressive community, and I believe that we are, but I also think we're kind of behind the curve on a lot of things. And one of the things I didn't hear any discussion of this evening or anything being factored into was encouraging energy storage for residential customers. I think this is very important. I think we're seeing it come online. It also has the benefits for storm and disaster recovery that needs to be considered. And I'm not hearing anything about that, and I'd like to hear some more about that. As far as the question you asked earlier about, what would make solar happen? I think when you have installers telling people that are looking at that if you live in Ames, we don't even want to bother with you, I think that tells us that we're not putting the right policies in place to encourage solar at this time. Thank you.
So, question for you, Mark, on that last comment.
Sure.
What is causing the installers to tell customers and Ames to do that? I mean,
Sure.
Is it strictly buyback rate?
Yeah.
Or is it the pain to put it in, get it installed?
It's all of the above.
Is it hiring engineers to do it? Is it building codes? Is it city codes? What's causing that? So,
Okay, Randy, I'll answer. So
yeah.
When it came to my solar study, I put up a 9.6 megawatt wind farm, and I had to have the same engineering firm that signed off on my wind farm come in and sign off on my solar panels. I was about floored when I saw the same name on the plan. And when I talked to my installer, who had to come get from Minneapolis because I couldn't find anybody around here at the time who was willing to work in Ames, they said that they've never encountered that anywhere.
Okay.
And they're in like 7 or 8 states, and they can't believe how hard it is here.
So that is a city
Yep,
construction
but it's all-
code
but it's
issue.
all- it's
It's
all
all
part
part of
of
the
the
same
deal.
deal, but it's,
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
okay.
But that's what we want to take into account because we're making recommendations back to city council.
Well, and it's just hard, period. I mean, when I put mine in, it was very difficult because it was in a condo, and I knew that going in, and I worked through all of that. But, and we had all the plans approved and everything. When it came out to get inspected, they said, oh, you need one more sign, and it's got to be on the outside of the garages. But the homeowners association only meets once a year, and they had approved my plan that I put in. If I couldn't have talked them out, if they would have held to that, I would have had to take my solar panels down, and I would have lost everything I put into it. So that's how hard it is. Now, fortunately, I had a super good installer who had this big code book with him, and he was a certified master electrician, and we were both good negotiating and peaceful people, and we were able to sit down and work it out with the city. But had they stuck to that, what they originally said, they said, oh, you have to put up one more one more placard. Nobody told us that until today. We would have done it. It's that kind of stuff that why the installers don't want to come to Ames.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's good information. Thank you. Other comments?
I just wanted to, I was the person who brought up the fact that installers would not answer back. I was not. So basically, we got a bunch of installers from a colleague of mine, and they live just outside the city of Ames. By the way, I was not aware that electric supply within Ames, but just outside the city of Ames, whatever was not from the city. But anyway, they had Alliant Energy, and they gave us a list, and they also said that some of these people will not serve customers from city of Ames. And I called these people just because, things change also. So I called them and they said, no, it is not worth it, in the sense that they don't get enough customers from Ames because the incentive structure is not there. That's their assessment of it. It could be incorrect, it could be correct. That's what they say, right?
Okay.
And by the way, as far as my colleague who's this Alliant Energy, who's an Alliant Energy customer, she says that, if I'm not mistaken, it's basically like a net rate or something that they get. However, I have not looked into that. I can look into it and get back to you. If that's what you want, I can actually do that. Anyway.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Ron?
Hello, my name is Ron Franzen, and I'm a resident here in Ames, but actually I'm talking about one of our commercial projects that I have an interest in, and that's at McFarland Clinic out in West Ames. We have a solar array on top of one of our facilities that's over 900 panels. It's kind of one of the hidden jewels here in Ames with solar. So I was listening to the information that was shared tonight, and I was really quite interested in the demand charge, because as a commercial business, the demand charge, we're getting penalized because we're on a demand on top of the fee that we get back for solar. So if the solar energy costs that we are actually producing or energy that we're overproducing, excuse me, is reduced, that's a double whammy, because we're still paying for the higher energy rate on a demand. And also the incentive that's there for, as I look at this, is with the shaving peak kilowatt hours to help reduce the city of Ames to not have to do the peak alerts. And if the peak energy alert is really based on hours of 4 or 5 o'clock till 7 o'clock at night, all the commercial properties that are actually 8 to 5, or in our situation, 12-hour operation, that's whittled down to the last 2 hours of operation when we're actually on the downside of closing the operation versus being in peak production. So the energy savings that we would be balanced off of, if I'm understanding that, is between 5 and 7 p.m. versus our peak energy, which can start at anywhere from 10 a.m. through 4 to 5 p.m. And so we're shaving off of this one particular location over 40%, over almost 50% of energy that we're producing with our solar. I don't personally believe in overproduction. I believe in just underproduction of our capacity or what we can use, so that I use up everything that we produce. To me, that's the ideal situation. But I'm from commercial side, thinking of commercial operation. We want to produce, we want to save energy, and we want to basically capitalize on the energy savings we can achieve. I just caution or really am concerned about the demand. When you start changing those rates and how that affects the demand from a commercial side, it does have a different impact.
Right.
And I respect all the residents, because I'm a resident here in town too. And I understand that they made an investment for their properties, and they're looking to get a return on investment. I'm looking just to be sustainable in what our operations are. And I don't have one location. I talk as one, but I'm really talking, and I have multiple locations that we have solar at McFarland Clinic. Alliant Energy is much more hospitable to solar energy than the city of Ames. their rebates, what they offer is much greater. We have a facility here in town that's just another 100 yards down the road. I would have been on Alliant Energy versus City of Ames. We would have solar on that location. We don't have solar on it. So it's a big hindrance in the City of Ames for solar to encourage commercial properties, commercial owners, and for me to encourage our physicians at McFarland Clinic to want to invest in solar. And I so much push for energy conservation all over for many, many years, and I've been at different presentations for that. So the demand rate was a question I had, and the time of business was another one that I had. One question that I had in addition was, when you have your rates listed, and you talked about what the cost of energy is at the City of Ames, does that also include the energy costs that you're purchasing?
Are you referencing those, Ron? Those, oops.
So the 0.75 up there, does that your utility costs, and then we have the additional energy costs that you purchase, additional energy to help you over the hump, so to speak, if you're not able to produce everything. So the energy you're buying, that additional energy cost that comes back to the property owner or to commercial.
So those numbers would be their rate for recovering cost of what they generate, cost of what they purchase, cost of the transmission, cost of the distribution, all that is in those numbers.
So that's all blended.
It's all blended.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
So then if you take that blended rate and you look at it from just 5 to 7, the actual rate that I'm paying on a commercial property is much higher because if you're only focusing on the rebate or the value of solar just on 5 to 7, are we really capturing the right amount for the commercial side of the business?
I would say these numbers are looking at dollars per kilowatt.
Yeah. The value of solar, the 5.5 cents is all
Energy.
daylight hours, not just the 4 to 8 or 3 to 5. It's considered all of the daylight hours, Monday through Friday.
4,000 hours a year.
Yeah. So 5 cents.
Right.
The 5.5, that is your cost for producing the electricity, or the dollars that you're paying back out on solar over production.
So, and we may be talking different things here. That's why I want to make sure we understand.
That's
So
fine.
from the cost of service study, they came out and said they first looked at what is our average wholesale energy cost.
That's purchased.
That's purchased. They also looked at what would the savings be from transmission, and also backed out not having to have generation because you're producing. So that number on average, on peak, well, when I say on peak, I'm talking daylight hours, Monday through Friday, we call that on peak, not just a few hours. That worked out in the study to 5.5 cents. Are we talking the same?
I don't think you're talking the same thing.
Pardon me, Jeff?
I don't think you guys both,
No,
I don't think you're
so.
talking the same thing.
But you're saying on peak is daylight hours, but actually, is that how you're calculating the return for all private residences as well?
Correct.
So they're getting 5.5 cents back per kilowatt hour over production?
I'm sorry, that's the value of solar. The rates that we are paying for.
This is what they get for overproduction.
Yeah. So the rates that they existed were, in this case, summer season was 12 cents, winter season was 10 cents.
Mhm.
From a previous rate study, the way this was developed is in that 12 cents, roughly 40% of it was the energy component. The other 60% was line workers, transmission, transformers, generation, all of that other stuff. So we said, okay, use the 40 cents, 40% of that, plus a 2.5 cent adder, and then that's how those rates were developed.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That's the existing rates.
That is correct.
Right. So when we move forward then and we start looking at the proposed, you had 4 options up there. And so from those 4 options, that's what I'll be most interested in when it starts breaking down to the dollars and cents. And then I would be happy to come back and try to put it together
Okay.
with you guys to understand that better on how it affects the commercial. Because my point is, we need to have a solar production. We need to encourage that, both in the commercial as well as the residential. And I realize it's a small sliver at this point, but it is something that's needed for the community. And just for economics for businesses, it costs a lot of money to put up a big array. Residential is expensive. It's a heck of a lot dollars more when you're going into a large solar array. So any type of rebate that can help with that, and I see the $500 to the $700 range on the kilowatt hour or the kW reduction for a large commercial, that would be a win versus the dribble effect for the next 20 years. I mean, it's just more of how can I get the capital dollar reduction the quickest and the rebate back to help offset that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Anyone else like to speak?
Jim Penny, 2936 Cypress Circle again. I'd like your rates in option 4, and I think it would be nice if you'd include the $500 per kilowatt for the people that want to put it up.
Understood.
We've had a system for 8 years, and we've had a number of people come and talk to us about it. And after you explain what the cost to put it up, and then we've gotten hail twice in the last 8 years and had to take it off for about $2,700 and put it back on. We're doing it for conservation. We're not doing it to make money. And only one person that I know of has put up a solar system, based on our conversation. And that was before you reduced the rates. But if you want to encourage it, you're going to have to pay for it. And I think most citizens, or probably most all of them, would be in favor of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to me.
Anyone else? Again, sir.
One question.
Okay.
Jim Coyle, 4301 Ross Road again. One question I have is, we have a lot of cars in Ames and there's a lot of gasoline used. What are we going to do for an electrical utility when half of those or 3/4 of those become electric? Are we going to need to have a huge power plant built, and what is that going to cost for the city? I mean, it's coming.
We've had those discussions, and it's probably more on the distribution side of upgrading your distribution to handle the loads, because it's not designed for that, as well as encouraging you to charge your cars off peak overnight. You don't want to plug your car in at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which everybody wants to do when they get home, right?
Yeah.
But that's the worst thing you can do for the utility.
That's where smart metering comes into play, and you allow it to talk with your EV charger and EV car and time of use rates.
Yeah.
Those three
Good idea.
components is what will probably solve it more for Don than anything else.
Okay.
John,
I used to
John
joke-
happens to be an
Yeah.
EV owner.
I'm
and-
an EV owner as well, right? I share a lot of your same sentiment. And when I started your app, I told Don that every time I get one of those max peak, I plug in my truck, because you have to incentivize me not to charge at max peak. And until you do that, there's no reason for me to not do that. And we're working on time of use. And if you think about time of use, even as a solar customer, right? Now your avoided cost is 28 cents a kilowatt, right? If you go to, right, instead of the 10 or 12, or now they're 8 and 11, right? Instead of your avoided cost being that, your avoided cost now becomes 28 cents a kilowatt hour, which is going to shove your buyback period way up as well, right? Because the peak time is it's not peak for your solar array, but you're still going to be producing. I have fully facing south. I have a perfect roof for it too. but I'm still producing 4 or 5 kilowatts in my 6.6 at 4 or between 2 and 6, and so my avoided cost now becomes much higher, and so I've been trying to get a smart meter for a while now. Every meeting, I'm like, when do I get to go to time of use? But I think that's the answer.
Is there a resource at the city that one can talk to? I remember the energy guy, I forgot.
Steve,
Yeah.
Joel Zook would be the guy to talk to.
Okay.
We'll have his contact info.
With you? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. One more? Maybe?
That's why we're here.
Small comment. Steve Shalane, 1123 North 2nd Street. I'm a community solar member user. Option 4 for me would have been the best. I'm sorry, option 1 with the biggest rebate up front. What was that, 3 or 4?
3.
3. Yeah, that was my favorite. I didn't put it on my house because I got a lot of trees, and listening to, okay, the solar array can't be seen from the street, and they had all these very heavy restrictions on how it's done. And I've heard this, that the installers are having trouble in Ames. So maybe that's the thing that, besides option 3, you should encourage some education through the installers, additional materials, or actually, I don't know, radically fund a training program for solar installers in the city, so that solar installers cannot be disincentivized to come here, but they would be incentivized. Oh, you're City of Ames. We know how to do all that. We were trained. That would be great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. Eric Tivashek, 809 Narland Drive. I am not currently a solar owner. I have worked for a solar company for 18 years. What would encourage me to put solar on my property is if there was more lax rules for ground mount installation. My home has a 10,000 square foot property size. I can put 1,200 square foot of accessory buildings in my backyard that are 12 foot high at the peak, 5 foot from the fence line, but I'm limited to 120 square foot of ground mount solar that is maximum 6 foot tall. I don't want to put it on my roof. There's certain reasons why, but I would be willing to do ground mount on more of a DIY setup. I can go to signaturesolar.com. I can purchase good solar for 30 cents a watt. I can do some sonotubes in the ground for pretty cheap, and I might be $2 a watt installed with a 3-year payback time. And for me, as an engineer, that's doable. So my encouragement for me is more lax rules on that end.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. That's really good information.
Anyone else? Well, we thank you for coming, and thanks for your insight and comments. We've got a lot to chew on. I appreciate everyone's comments. Next steps for us, as John said, we're going to consider these comments. We've got a meeting here in November. We'll be talking about this and trying to decide what our next steps are. Our goal is to get to council before the end of the year. We may or may not make that goal, but that's council's wanting, excuse me, council's wanting some recommendations from us on this that they will then take and decide what they're going to do. If you have further questions for city staff, their contact information is up there for Don, Curtis, and Joel, who could not be here tonight. He's the Steve Wilson, the energy guy, today's energy guy. So thank you very much.
Thank you.